Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going deep into French spelling. It could be a bit of a challenge, right? But I have a feeling it'll be a fascinating one to explore, especially for our listeners who, really love language.
Yes, French orthography, people often think it's completely illogical, but it's actually more like a linguistic time capsule. It's a fascinating journey, really.
Okay, a time capsule. I like that. So you're saying the way French words are spelled now is like stuck in the past.
Exactly. Think like 12th century, when spoken French was, quite
Yeah.
different. But the spelling, it decided to, mostly stay put.
Wow, so they hit pause on spelling evolution? No wonder it trips people up.
Right. And that's how you get all those silent letters. They're like echoes of sounds that, they faded from pronunciation, like temps for tonight. That continues to be
It's like
forget.
they wanted to keep every little sound from their history alive in their spelling.
It's incredible, isn't it? And it gets even better. French has so many homophones, words that, sound the same but have completely different spellings.
Okay, how many are we talking here?
Oh, sometimes you'll find like 6 different spellings for the same sound.
6.
Ah.
Seriously. You have to give me an example.
Son, 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 sin, son, son, all pronounced the same way.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. It's like every word is a puzzle and the puzzle pieces are like spread out over centuries. So how do we even begin to make sense of it all? They're like rules?
There are definitely rules. Let's start with the alphabet. It's similar to English, 26 letters, but French has some tricks up its sleeve, like diacritics.
You mean the accents?
Exactly. Those little marks, they might seem intimidating, but they actually make a lot of sense. They tell you how to pronounce the vowels.
Oh, okay. So they're kind of like pronunciation guides.
Exactly. Take the acute accent, that little slash going up to the right. When it's over an E, it makes an E sound. Like in clay, that's key.
Right. Okay, I see. And what about the other one, the one that goes the other way?
The grave accent. It can be on an A, U, or an E, and it can change the meaning of a word, like A meaning to and A meaning has. Just that little accent makes all the difference.
That is amazing how such a small mark can change so much.
And it doesn't stop there. With an E, a grave accent can also signal different E sounds, like lev, which means lifts, versus lever, which means to lift.
Wow, okay. Those accents are like small but mighty. What about that little hat-looking one?
The circumflex. Now we're getting to the good stuff. It often tells you that a letter, usually an S or a vowel, used to be there in older French, like chateau for castle, that circumflex over the A. There used to be an S there.
You're kidding. It's like every word is a little history lesson.
I know. And the circumflex isn't just for history. It also helps you tell homophones apart. Do and do, totally different meanings. But that little hat, it saves the day.
So it's like a warning sign, like, watch out, these words sound the same, but they don't mean the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay, this is amazing. We've got the acute accent, the grave accent, and the circumflex. I feel like I'm becoming fluent in accentese.
You're getting there, but there's more. There are other diacritical marks, and we haven't even gotten to those intriguing ligatures like A and ook.
Oh, right, like cur for heart. What's the deal with those?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. But we should probably give our listener a chance to process all this accent information first.
Okay, I'm ready to jump back into those ligatures. They always seemed a bit mysterious.
Well, they're like little clues about how French evolved from Latin. Like, you'll often find it in words with Latin roots.
Oh, I see. So like bouffe for beef, that oeuvre is a hint about where the word came from.
Exactly. It comes from the Latin bavim. The pronunciation might have changed over time, but it's like a little souvenir from its Latin ancestor.
It's incredible how much history is packed into these, like, 2-letter combinations.
Right. And speaking of combinations, we should talk about digraphs and trigraphs. Those are groups of letters that, they get together to represent one sound.
Like chi in chat for cat. That's a she sound, not a K sound.
Exactly. Some of them, like ligatures, are like leftovers from older pronunciations. Others are, they're more recent. They helped capture those specific French sounds, like O in the word for water. 3 vowels, but they make one O sound.
It's like French spelling has all these layers to it, history, sound, even a little bit of, rebellion. But with all these influences, how did it ever become, like, standardized? Who gets to decide the rules?
That's where the Académie Française comes in.
The Academy.
Yeah. They started back in the 17th century, and their mission was to, bring some order to French spelling.
So they're like, the spelling police.
Sort of. They set up rules and conventions. They weren't always perfect, but they gave French orthography some structure.
I bet that was a tough job, with language always changing. Did they ever, face any resistance?
Oh, absolutely. People have strong opinions about language and the academy. They definitely had their critics, especially when it came to spelling reforms.
Yeah, that makes sense. Language is so personal, so cultural. What are some of the biggest changes they made?
Well, remember how we talked about J-I and R used to be I and E?
Right.
That was a big one. And the circumflex, using it to show a vowel, used to be longer, even though the pronunciation had changed.
Wow. It's like they really wanted to preserve the history of the language in its spelling.
Exactly. And it didn't stop there. More recently, the High Council of the French language, they've suggested even more changes, like standardizing hyphens and numbers.
So even today, French spelling is still evolving.
Exactly.
Okay.
Language is never truly static. But even with updates, those basic principles from centuries ago, they still shape how French is written. It's pretty amazing, really, how much tradition influences things.
And speaking of tradition, what about that thin space they use before some punctuation marks? It's so French.
It is, isn't it? It's like they want their punctuation to breathe. You'll see it before exclamation points, question marks, even those fancy guillemets they use for quotes.
It's details like that, that make learning different languages so fun. It's not just memorizing words. It's like discovering a whole new way of seeing the world.
I agree. And that cultural influence, it pops up in other places too, like how they use hyphens in place names.
Oh, right. Like Place de la Bataille de Stalingrad. It's like the hyphens are telling a story.
And like any good story, there are always surprises. That hyphenation rule, not always consistent. Côte d'Ivoire, sometimes it has a hyphen, sometimes it doesn't.
It's almost like even within the rules, they leave room for, a little bit of artistry. French spelling is full of surprises.
It really is. It keeps you on your toes, but in a good way. Speaking of surprises, are you ready for a few more fun facts? I've got some good ones up my sleeve.
Okay, you said you had some more fun facts about French spelling. I'm all ears.
All right, how about this one? The word oignon, for onion.
Yeah, oignon. What about they?
It's like they took every vowel and just threw them all in there.
You're not kidding.
And the funny thing is, that G used to be pronounced, but it went silent over time. But the spelling, it kept it around just for fun, it seems.
It's like those silent letters are little reminders of the past. Okay, give me another one. What other words are, secretly tricky?
How about femme?
A woman.
Femme, wait, is that E at the end silent?
You got it. You never know it from the spelling, but yeah, it's quiet. And it's not just femme. Silent E's are all over the place.
They seem to like to keep us guessing, don't they? But there's got to be a reason, right?
Oh, yeah, there is, those silent E's. They actually help shape how French sounds, specifically with something called liaison.
Liaison? What's that? It's like a connection between words. So that silent E at the end, sometimes it gets pronounced. If the next word starts with a vowel, it makes everything flow together smoothly.
So even when it's silent, it's still doing something. It's like every part of the language is working together.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Oh, and remember how we talked about Greek influencing French?
Oh, yeah, with scientific words.
Right. Knowing a bit of Greek can help you figure out those big, scary scientific terms, like photography. If you break it down, it's actually phos, meaning light, and graphenein, meaning to write. So light writing.
Wow, that's actually really cool. I never thought about it that way.
And we were talking about French place names before.
Yeah, with all the hyphens.
Right, like Place de la Bataille de Stalingrad. It's not just a name, it's like a little history lesson.
Exactly. And it's not just for battles. You'll see it with names of, people, regions, even mountains. It shows you how much language is tied to culture and history. It's more than just words, It really is incredible how much, depth there is to it all.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into French spelling, what would you say is the biggest takeaway?
I think it's this. French spelling. It might seem strange at first, but when you really look at it, every rule, every accent, even those silent letters, they all have a story to tell. It's a story about how language changes, how cultures mix, and, well, it's a story about what makes French, French.
I love that. We started in this jungle of letters, and now it feels more like, I don't know, a beautiful garden full of surprises. It's amazing how much you can learn from just looking closely at how words are spelled. So to our listeners, the next time you see a French word and you're like, How do we even pronounce that?
Yeah.
Remember, there's a reason for all those letters. There's history there, there's culture, and there's definitely a story. And on that note, until next time, keep on exploring those linguistic mysteries.